can you keep a secret? Now, you've been asked that question before. Have you ever answered no? Of course not. No one ever says no. You say yes. You always say yes because you want to know what the secret is. And of course, the person asking you in that moment if you can keep a secret are themselves not keeping a secret. And you may well already be thinking about who you'll tell, even as you are saying that, yes, of course, absolutely, of course, look at me. Yes, I can keep a secret. But you want the information. Because we, as humans, want to know secrets. We want to know secrets, and we want to tell secrets, and we also, and this is what makes it all so tricky, want to keep secrets. And the question, can you keep a secret, is a question that we find ourselves tonight in a really fascinating news day learning that more and more, no matter who you are, the most powerful government on earth or a private citizen, the answer to that question is no. As of the end of 2011, there were more than 1.4 million people with top secret security clearance in the United States. And today, after 3 years of pretrial detention, some of it in conditions that were described by the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture as, at a minimum, cruel, inhuman, and degrading, one of those people, just one of the 1.4 million people with top secret clearance, is on trial for leaking a whole heck of a lot of the government's secrets. Bradley Manning is, of course, the 25-year-old soldier accused of turning over hundreds of thousands of government files to WikiLeaks, including diplomatic cables, battlefield reports from Iraq and Afghanistan, and videos of airstrikes that killed civilians. His trial got underway today. He faces life in prison if he's convicted. Bradley Manning is viewed by some as a hero, others as a villain and a traitor. But what Bradley Manning really is proof that the government cannot keep its own secrets. If 1.4 million people had access to the information Bradley Manning had access to, that information is not a secret in any real way. If I asked you to tell me what is a secret that 1.5 million people know, you would tell me nothing, because it's not a secret if that many people know it. The grand irony of the construction of the post-9/11 security state is this country is that it has grown so large, it has laid claim to so many secrets that it is now imploding under its own weight. And so the government has to act with increasing aggression and desperation to make examples of people who are among those 1.4 million people who leak secrets. So we get, under President Obama, more prosecutions of government officials for alleged leaks under the World War I era Espionage Act than all of his predecessors combined. We get Bradley Manning on trial. A trial brought by a government that is, quite understandably, absolutely chilled by imagining a world without secrets, terrified at the thought that in this century, the answer to the question, can you keep a secret, is no. No, you can't. Governments the world over are having a harder and harder time keeping secrets from their citizens. But in this strange new world we find ourselves in, citizens too are having a harder and harder time keeping their secrets from their government. Which brings me to the other big story today out of Washington. The Supreme Court ruled in a 5-4 decision that people who are arrested, not convicted, but arrested as suspects in certain crimes can be forced to take a cotton swab in their mouths to give up a DNA sample that could then be stored in a government database. Now, when you think about the secrets you hold as a person, as a citizen, your DNA may not be at the top of your mind, but it is actually the ultimate secret. It is your very biological essence, what diseases you might be prone to, where you come from, quite simply, who you are. The court decided today that that information can be taken from you without your consent and kept in a database. Of course, Justice Anthony Kennedy, who wrote the 5-4 majority opinion, made a point of noting that all of the precautions taken with the database in this case, the state is not allowed to just play around with it and search it for fun or interesting facts about people, can only be used to identify suspects. But no matter how responsible the state promises to be with it, it is a government database that is subject to the same forces that our top secret clearance system is. And that system that America is trying and failing to keep Chinese hackers out of these days. Which is to say, it is a system that cannot keep its secrets.
Anybody want to crash a couple of passenger jets?
I said, turn it off. Turn it off.
So it's a code breaker?
No. It's the code breaker. No more secrets.
No more secrets. who you are, down to the very molecular fiber of your being, could find its way into a spreadsheet somewhere that 10 years or 20 years from now, the Chinese government or some rogue terrorist or some 19-year-old hacker kid is going to get their hands on. And who knows what they're going to do with it? Because the answer to the question, can you keep a secret, in the 21st century, increasingly, is a resounding and terrifying no. Is it permissible to just have a database of the DNA identifiers of every citizen in the country that we just run as a matter of course when they interface with law enforcement to make sure that we don't have some rapist for an unsolved rape halfway around the country running around?
Chris, I'll take on the hypothetical. It may very well be that in 20 years we will reach such a brave new world. Now, that's why we have to have all sorts of protections about how the database is used. We already have, as Barry mentioned at the outset, DNA databases. So the world that you are worrying about is already here. We already have databases, and indeed, there may be arguments that this is a problem, this particular policy, because certain categories are being singled out. Maybe in some ways, misery loves company. Frankly, I like the fact that they don't just put me through the metal detector at the airport. They put you and people who look like you through the metal detector because I'm not being singled out because I look a certain way.
This is a grim vision of equality in which we are going to subject everyone to, say, DNA testing. And my question for you, Barry, as someone who has dealt with the actual practical administration of these databases is can we trust the way in which they are administered as they grow larger and larger? Because to connect to the Bradley Manning question, what we have seen in the national security state is that as the secrecy state, as the secret government has grown larger and larger, it gets harder and harder to administer. You get more leaks, you get more problems with it. And my question is, as this data grows bigger, do we have reason to trust it will be fairly administered?
Well, actually, that's my greatest concern here. I'm not going to debate Akil, of all people, for whom I have enormous respect, about an originalism debate with Scalia about the meaning of the warrant requirement and whether he's inventing that or others have invented that over time. But let me get to the reasonableness argument that Akil raised. I'm personally not particularly thrilled by the idea that the state has everybody's DNA in this day and age. But let me give you a perspective. I've been involved in this DNA database implementation from its very beginning. And when they were sequencing the human genome, a lot of us were on commissions about the ethical, legal, and social implications of the genome and what you might or might not do. And I watched all these statutes being implemented. In New York, I'm a commissioner. So think about this. Our statute, like statutes all across the country, said all that you could do with a DNA hit is look at some crime that had been committed, a sample from some crime, or identify a missing person. And then the next thing that happens when they can't get legislation through as they want, all of a sudden a commission that I'm on and my colleague Peter Neufeld, we get outvoted, and they say, okay, we're going to start doing what they call partial matching or really familial searching.
Right. So they're looking for you, and then they start looking, okay, well, maybe your family members.
And I wonder what Akil thinks about that, because I am telling you that all across the country, people are doing that without statutory obligation.
Yeah,
authorization.
And Akil, obviously, there's a difference here between what is constitutional and what is wise policy, and how it's administered. Barry Scheck, co-founder of the Innocent Project, and Akil Amar, professor at Yale Law School. Thank you, gentlemen, both. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We became, alone among the animals, afraid of death and of future loss. And this was the start of a great tragedy and an even greater possibility. You see, when we become afraid of death, of injury and imprisonment, we become controllable and so valuable in a way that no other resource could ever be. The greatest resource for any human being to control is not natural resources or tools or animals or land, but other human beings.